Today we're going to be talking about quadratic equations. So what are quadratic equations? A quadratic equation is an equation where the highest power of the variable x or any other variable is 2, like the power. And the general equation for a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So as I was saying, that the highest power of the variable, in this case the variable is x, the highest power of the variable is 2. So that is a quadratic equation, and in this case a cannot be 0, like the value of a cannot be 0. For example, you can have an equation like x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. So this is an example of a quadratic equation. The highest power of the variable, in this case the variable is x, the highest power of the variable is 2 here, as you can see. Okay, now this is the standard form of a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c, where these are representing, this represents a coefficient, representing a coefficient of x squared. A coefficient is a number that is just below that term. For example, x squared, the coefficient of this is, there's an imaginary one here, the coefficient is 1. Maybe if I have 5x squared, the coefficient of x squared is 5. The coefficient is that number just before. And if it's maybe -5, the coefficient is -5. Okay. Then now the c is a constant. C is a constant. As you can see, it has no variable accompanying it. Okay. Then now let's look at how we can solve quadratic equations. We can solve quadratic equation by 3 ways. We can either use completing squares, or we can use the factorization method, or we can use the quadratic formula. So today we are going to be talking about solving quadratic equation using completing squares. Now basically, as using the method of completing squares, we are trying to, in this case, maybe this, so today we are going to look at solving quadratic equations using the completing by completing squares. So in this case, the main goal as we solve quadratic equations using this method is we try to turn the equation into a perfect square. And now what is a perfect square? A perfect square is a number which can be obtained by squaring another number. For example, this is 9. 9 can be obtained by 3 times 3. So 9 is 3 squared. So this is 9 is a perfect square because it can be obtained by squaring one number. So even something like x plus 1 squared, this is a perfect square because it's obtained by squaring just two numbers. I hope that makes sense. So let's see how we do it. Now, there are 4 main things we have to look at as we solve quadratic equations. The first step, we have to ensure that the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. If it's not 1, we make sure it's 1 by dividing through by that number. We're going to see in the future examples. So in this case, we are lucky that the coefficient of our x squared term is already 1. Then the second step, we take this c term to the other side. So we are going to say we have x squared plus 8x is equals to -12. We take it to the other side. Then after that, we get the coefficient of the x term. In this case, it's 8. We get that if we get 8, we multiply it by a half. We multiply it by half, what do we get? We get 4, and then we square this. Now what we get here, we add it on both sides. So we're going to say x squared plus 8x plus 4 squared is equals to -12 plus 4 squared. Now the next step after this is we are going to generate our perfect square. We get this here, it's x. We get the sign here, it's a plus. Then we get our term here, the 4, only the 4. And you square it. We generated our perfect square is equals to -12 plus 16. Now let me explain a little here. Now this term, if you square it, it gives us this. Let's try it here on the side. We have x plus 4 squared. This is equals to x plus 4 into x plus 4. So when you square this, x into x plus 4 plus 4 into x plus 4, this gives you x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. This is equals to x squared plus 8x plus 16. So we see this is what is here. So we just change it to this. though with time it's going to make sense, and I can refer it to our chapter on indices, algebra. You will see it will make more sense. So now when we have this, we continue working out the number. We have x plus 4 squared is equals to 4. Then we find the square root of both sides. So here we'll have x plus 4 is equals to plus or minus 2. That's another very important step, that don't forget that when you get the square root of any number, it's plus or minus, because to get, when you say negative 2 squared, it's 4. But when you also say 2 squared, it's 4, meaning the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2. It can be either the plus or the minus. So here we have this, meaning here our next step here is we say either x plus 4 is equals to positive 2, or x plus 4 is equals to negative 2. So we say here is x is equals to negative 2 plus negative 4 plus 2, or x is equals to negative 4 minus 2. So we have our x being either x is negative 2 or x is equals to negative 6. So let's look at another example. Here we have x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Now the first step, I told you, always ensure that the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. In this case it's already 1. Then we take this, the constant, the c, to the other side. So we'll say here we have x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. So we say x squared minus 3x is equals to negative 2. We are taking this to the other side. Then we are going to get the coefficient of the x term. Now, for this case, only in this case, when we're taking the coefficient, we don't take the sign, we don't take the accompanying sign, we just take the 3. But usually when we're taking the coefficients, we include the sign. So when we get here, we take the 3, multiply half. What do we get here? We get 3 out of 2. Now we square this. When we get this, we add this on both sides. So we say this is x squared minus 3x plus 3 out of 2 squared is equals to negative 2 plus 3 out of 2 squared. So I told you, when we get to this, now we are going to generate our perfect square. We get this x, the sign following it, minus, then we get this term that we squared, minus 3 out of 2 squared. If you square this on your side work, you will get this. So it will show you we have actually generated a perfect square. This equals to negative 2 plus, this is 9 out of 4. So we can now put that into our calculator. Negative 2 plus 9 out of 4. Get a quarter. So here we have x minus 3 out of 2 squared is equals to a quarter. So we get the square root of both sides, square root of both sides. So we have either x minus 3 out of 2 is equals to, no, here, okay, we can first wait to go to that step. So we say x minus 3 out of 2 is equals to plus or minus a half. Then now we can come here and say either x minus 3 out of 2 is equals to half positive, or x minus 3 out of 2 is equals to negative half. So we have x is equals to 3 out of 2 plus a half, or x minus 3 out, or x is equal to 3 out of 2 minus a half. So I would have x, you put this into your calculator. So I would have x is equals to 2, or x is equals to 1. So here we've solved this quadratic equation. Another thing I forgot to tell you is that since the highest power in quadratic equations is 2, though as we saw here, the highest power in quadratic equations is 2, that means the answers that solve this equation, like the values of x, will always be 2. There will always be 2 answers that solve this equation. Now those answers, we call them roots of a quadratic equation. When I ask you what are the roots of this quadratic equation, I am asking you what are the values of x that solve this quadratic equation. Okay, now let's see another number. Now here you see we have 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 equals to 0. And I told you the first step always is to ensure that the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. In this case it's not 1. So we're going to make it 1. How? We divide through by 2, divide through by 2, divide through by 2, divide through by 2. So we have x squared minus 7 out of 2x minus 2 equals to 0. So we've made it 1. The second step, we take this term, the constant, to the other side. So we have x squared minus 7 out of 2 is equals to 2. Then now we come here on our side work. so here there's an x, sorry. Then we come here on our side, look, we get the coefficient of the x term, which is 7 out of 2. I told you here we don't accompany it with the sign. Then we multiply by a half, such that we get 7 out of 4. Then we square this term. When we square this term, we add it on both sides. So what we have x squared minus 7 out of 2x plus 7 out of 4 squared is equals to 2 plus 7 out of 4 squared. After this step, I told you that we can generate our perfect square. How? We get x, the sign just after it, minus, then we bring this term 7 out of the term that we squared, then now we have our perfect square. I told you in your side you can always try to square this, it will bring you back to this. Then now we have here, you can input this into a calculator. You have 2, okay, let's first break it down. We have 2 plus 49 out of 16. So you have x minus 7 out of 4 squared is equals to 2 plus 49 out of 16. So you get your answer. As 81 out of 16. 81 out of 16. Find the square root on both sides. Find the square root on both sides. So you have x minus 7 out of 4 is equals to plus or minus 9 out of 4. Now we can go to our next step. Either x minus 7 out of 4 is equals to plus 9 out of 4, or x minus 7 out of 4 is equals to negative 9 out of 4. So we have x is equals to 7 out of 4 plus 9 out of 4, or x is equals to 7 out of 4 minus 9 out of 4. So you can use a calculator here and see. Here x is 4, or x is negative 0.5 or negative a half. So here x is negative a half. So solve that. We solve this quadratic equation. So these are the roots of the quadratic equation. Okay, now we have this, solving this by completing squares. Now remember we talked about this and we said that the standard equation for a quadratic equation, the standard quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a cannot be 0. Okay, now when we have this, the first step, we were going to follow the same steps. The first step is always ensure that the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. In this case, it's not 1. How do we make it 1? We divide through by a. Divide through by a, divide through by a, divide through by a. So what do we have? X squared plus b out of a, x plus c out of a equals to 0. What's our second step? We take the c term, the constant, to the other side. So we have x squared plus b out of ax is equals to negative c out of a. This is our, then now the next step after that, we get the coefficient of the x term, which is b out of a, multiply it by a half, and we have b out of 2a. Then you square this. When you square this, you get this and add it on both sides. So we have x squared plus b out of a x plus b out of 2a squared is equals to negative c out of a plus b out of 2a squared. After this, I told you our next step, we now generate our perfect square. How we get this? X, the term after it is plus, then we get what's in this bracket, 2b out of 2a. Then I will generate our perfect square. I told you when you square this, in your side of you can actually see, you'll find this is equals to negative c out of a. We can now simplify this. This is plus b squared out of 4a squared. So we can further simplify this. We will see we have x plus b out of 2a squared is equals to negative, now for this step, what are we going to, we are going to find the LCM of this, which is 4a squared. So we get 4a squared divided by a, do we get 4a? Then we multiply it by this, we get negative 4ac plus b squared. Now for those who don't understand this, you can look for our video on addition and subtraction of fraction. I think it will make that easier for you. So we have this is equals to, we can rearrange this to be b squared minus 4ac out of 4a squared. Then after we find the square root of both sides, we have x plus b out of 2a is equals to, now the numerator can stay b squared because It's not a, we can't find its square. It's not a perfect square. We can't find. But now this, it can become 2a plus. So we don't forget that the square root is always plus or minus. So we get either. So here we can actually just say x is equals to negative b out of 2a plus or minus b squared minus 4ac out of 2a. So our value of this is equals to, since the denominators are the same, we can add the numerator. This is negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac. And from this we found the quadratic formula that we can solve all the quadratic equations. This, and how does this work? This works when you're given any quadratic equation, you can obtain the value of a, the value of b, the value of c. For example, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. You can obtain their coefficients, then you put them into this formula. And when you're carrying the coefficient, I told you, you carry it with the accompanying sign, except here when you're solving this, when you're getting what to add this, you don't carry the sign, but when we're solving using the quadratic formula, we'll be carrying the sign. So now the next time we'll be checking